Fala galera, meu nome é Bruno, esse aqui é o Porquê Metal. No vídeo de hoje eu vou trazer uma entrevista que eu fiz com o guitarrista Jack Kosto do Seven Spires, banda americana, formado pela Adrienne Cohen, vocalista. Você deve conhecer pelo trabalho que ela faz com a Avantasia, mas também com Masters of Ceremony com Sasha Pace. A banda é formada também pelo Peter DeHeina no baixo e, claro, Jack Kosto, e a entrevista já tá chegando, eu vou parar de enrolar. A banda também tinha na sua formação, até pouco tempo atrás, o baterista Chris Dovas, que gravou os 4 discos que a banda tem. E falando nos 4 discos, essa entrevista é justamente para falar do novo lançamento deles, o A Fortress Called Home, o 4º disco de inéditas da banda que tá saindo hoje, 21 de junho de 2024. Esse é o primeiro disco da banda fora de uma trilogia de discos que abriu a carreira da banda, né, assim por dizer, com o Soul Vig de 2017, o Emerald Seas de 2020 e o Gods of Debauchery de 2021, e meu preferido. Inclusive eu tenho ele aqui. Esses 3 primeiros discos da banda, todos faziam parte de uma história conceitual, e o A Fortress Called Home é o primeiro disco fora dessa história. Bom, não vou me alongar muito mais, se você tá vendo essa entrevista, o disco já saiu, então vale a pena escutar. Se liguem então na entrevista que eu fiz com o guitarrista, o Jack Kosto. Valeu! So, hello Jack. I have to say that it's an honor to get the chance to talk to you today. I've been a big fan of Seven Spires ever since Soul Vig, the first album, of course, and I'm very excited about A Fortress Called Home, which will come out a week from now, on June 21st, probably the same date this interview will air. And this album has already released 3 singles, right? Almost Town, Architects of Creation, and The Old Hurts of Being Alone. All bangers, if I have to say. So
Thank you very much.
First of all, how are you this Friday afternoon? And are you excited about the album launch coming soon?
I'm doing really well. It's great to be here. Nice to talk to you. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm like any album release, I'm a little nervous. It's like I can't believe it's only a week away. It seemed like we finished making the album and I delivered the masters, and then there was a week or two of like, oh, thank God it's done, pressure's off. And then the next 4 months just flew by, and now here we are. So yeah, it's really good. I'm excited. So far, so good.
For you, it's special because not only you write songs, you play guitar, but you also mix and produce and master the album. You do all that, right?
Yes, yeah, this is the first one that I've mixed and mastered myself. I've had a hand in the recording since Emerald Seas, the second album, but Sasha Pace has done the mixing and mastering for the other albums. And this one was definitely a lot of work and an interesting way to also have a hand in the music, but it was really great, and I'm happy I did it.
Favorite album from Seven Spires, so far at least, is Gods of Debauchery. And I remember from social media that the album was produced mostly during the COVID-19 pandemic, when Seven Spires had some concerts cancelled, right? So with that in mind, I'd like to know how different was the writing and production process of A Fortress Called Home in comparison to Gods of Debauchery? And musically, what can we expect from the album?
Ooh, that's another broad question. But I guess it was different because we had less time. The Gods of Debauchery was a special one because there was no live music happening. So we were holed up at home, just, having as much time as we want to spend on writing. And we took a good amount of time doing the recording and stuff. But this one was a lot faster. We're on label deadline. We have concerts going on. Everybody has different life projects and musical projects. And, Adrian's touring with other bands, Pete's managing bands. So there was less time for this one. I think the whole recording process basically was within 2 or 3 months or something like that, whereas it took a long time last time. Definitely very different, but as far as actually writing the songs, it's sort of the same because we go through a lot of, reworking things and working on things over a long period of time because it's important for the song to be exactly what it wants to be, however long it takes to get there. That can either be really fast or really slow, depending. And as far as what to expect, I guess expect what you would expect from any other Spires album, like a pretty diverse thing. There's some heavy stuff, some really light stuff, everywhere in between, few curveballs here and there, but it's all going to be very raw emotionally. I think this album's a little ugly. It's upsetting in a way, content-wise and lyrically, but I think intentionally so, it did its job.
And Seven Spires' first 3 albums were all part of a big concept story, right? Mm-hmm. So A Fortress Called Home is the first records that touches on your subject. Can you tell me if it's also a concept album and elaborate on some of the themes you guys are approaching?
Yeah, totally. It is a concept, and there are a lot of references to the first 3 albums, but it's not the same kind of concept where the first three albums, there were, characters that went to places and did things and the things happened in a certain order. Like it was a very linear storyline, kind of a little journey that we wanted to take you on. This album is the first one that's not that kind of linear narrative where there's a set story that takes place, but it is a concept record, and it is sort of a collection of the deeper feelings and emotions that inspired those first three albums. So it's related, but it's not part of the trilogy or the series, I guess. You can expect some nostalgia from callbacks to certain songs or albums, but it's not the same kind of journey in that way. It's more of an introspective look instead of an external thing. I hope that made sense.
Totally. So Seven Spires draws influence from various genres and also creates with orchestration big cinematic soundscapes that goes from epic to dark to romantic. So speaking of that, do you draw influence from movie scores on your songwriting? And if so, can you tell me some names and some scores that inspired you in the field?
Yeah, absolutely. And this would definitely be more of an Adrian question on specifics because she does all the orchestrations and those kind of cinematic arrangements and stuff. She's total genius when it comes to that. But I know a lot of her influences are always like scores from Hans Zimmer, his work in Interstellar and Pirates of the Caribbean and stuff like that. Also, she's a big fan of video game soundtracks. So there's a lot of old JRPGs like Legend of Zelda and these kind of things that creep their way in there. And some late romantic era classical music, Edward Elgar. It's a lot of different stuff, but if I had to pick one that I know is like definitely in there, it would be the Hans Zimmer scores.
That's cool. And what about your influences outside of the movie, but from metal and rock and whatever kind of music do you listen to that you think draws inspiration to the songwriting process?
All sorts of stuff. Like my tastes are very eclectic, both within metal and also just within music in general. We're all kind of like that. Lately, and I guess kind of in general, I'm into a lot of like melodic death metal or on the doomier side of that. Like I love bands like Draconian and Omnium Gatherum. Amorphous gets a lot of rotation. Dark Tranquility. So those are the kind of bands that have been in my rotation lately. But I'm looking for new stuff at the moment. So I'm going on the rabbit hole. Aborted's discography at the moment. There's a band called Benighted out of France that's like very extreme, brutal death metal, like
I love their
pig
new album,
squeals and all.
Backbone, right?
Yeah, super
Amazing.
great. Really good production too. So I'm all over the place.
I've seen that Seven Spires had already debuted live Almost Town and Architect of Creation on recent concerts. But I'd like to know, is there any song from A Fortress Called Home that you cannot wait to play live?
Oh, I wish we could play every song, every show. Like it's hard to pick set lists now having 4 albums because some like don't make sense to play or like, oh, we can't really do that one because we don't have time. But I think I'm really excited to play The Old Herd of Being Left Behind. That's going to be super fun. And I think there's a lot of talk about Love Souvenir, really fun one to play live. Have you heard like a promo of the album yet? Or
Unfortunately, just listen to the singles so far.
Okay, so I won't spoil too much for you, but there's a song on the album called Love Souvenir that both people who've heard previews of seem to really like, and fans that have heard, like on our Patreon, we do little snippets and teasers, so they've heard a little bit of that, and it seems like that's the one that people are really curious about. So I think that'll be fun too.
Speaking only the name, it sounds like a ballad. Is it right?
Kind of. It's. I spoke about this in other interviews, so I think I can say it goes from like a very dark, dry jazz ballad to some of the fastest symphonic death metal influence stuff that we've done, like within a 6-minute period and back and forth. And it's just like an insane song, but also again, like very ugly subject matter, very, very much about depression and loneliness and like that feeling of just wanting to rot away in your own bed and not wanting to face the world outside of your room.
Since last year, Seven Spires is officially a trio with the departure of drummer Chris Dovas. You guys are still searching for a definitive member?
Yeah, we've been touring with a guy out of Toronto, Canada, named Dylan Gowan, and we had the idea of maybe wanting to try out some other drummers, and we did a public audition process, and Dylan was one of the names that came through, and there were a couple others. But for various like scheduling reasons and stuff, Dylan's ended up doing a bunch of stuff with us and will do a bunch of stuff with us. And we like him a lot. He's an awesome player. So, we haven't really talked to him about making it official, but we've floated it. And it seems like that's maybe the way it'll probably go, like unless anybody snaps and goes on a killing spree between now and then or whatever. But like I said, he's just been killing it absolutely every show and really bringing a lot to the music and a lot of fun to the backstage and the tour vehicles. And it's been super great.
It's actually a fun topic, speaking of drums, because talking a lot about the departure of Eloy Casagrande from Sepultura to Slipknot, and Jay Weinberg from Slipknot to Suicidal Tendencies, and Nick Kutman from Suicidal Tendencies to Sepultura, and then Mike Portnoy came back to Dream Theater, all about the drums right now.
Yeah, it's been like musical chairs for drummers.
And speaking of concerts and tours, has ever been any talks of Seven Spires to come to Brazil to play?
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about it for years, and nothing really solid has ever come through. Like, I have some friends in Brazil, and particularly there's a band called Firewing that I mix for. Caio Kian lives in Sao Paulo, and he was a Berkeley friend of mine, and he runs this band called Firewing, and it's just awesome, also symphonic power metal. So we talked about maybe doing something with them, and it's sort of a hard thing to nail down going to South America for a band from here. So it's like as soon as we can and as soon as it makes sense, we want to.
I have to say that following Seven Spires seems so big. It's impressive how far you guys are reaching, how big you guys are getting.
Thank you very much, man. It's nice to hear that. I hope we do. And I hope we bring all of you guys with us.
Last Sunday, I've watched Concept live, and I was blown away by Roy Khan, which performed with Seven Spires on This God Is Dead from the Gods of Debauchery album, and also live in Prog Power. How was working with Roy, and how was playing live with him?
Oh, it was trippy, man. Getting him to sing on the album was funny because we had planned that song like maybe written apart for someone else who then ended up not being able to do it, and then we thought, what if we ask Roy Khan? What's he up to nowadays? Like, do you think we could get a hold of him? And it was such a shot in the dark. Like, we almost didn't count on it coming through, but we got his email and sent a cold email, just like, hey, we really love what you do. Would you be interested in singing on this song? And he wrote back a really nice response. Like, he's a fan of Adrian's and had been kind of following her career as well, and liked the song, wanted to be able to do his own thing with it if needed, and basically said, I need to pay for the studio, but otherwise let's do it. And it was great. He's such a nice guy. And the Prog Power thing worked out perfectly too, because Conception was playing that year as well. They were headlining the following day, I believe. Adrian ended up singing with them. He ended up singing with us. And I think we got sushi like 2 or 3 times together. And the night after their show, a bunch of guys from his band and us, we just like sat in one of their hotel rooms drinking and telling stories, and like literally until the sun came up. So it was like such a nice hang, if nothing else.
That's amazing. He seems like a great guy. And speaking of drinking, I saw that Seven Spires launched a signature coffee recently, right?
Yes.
That got me very interested. How did that opportunity came up?
So the guy who runs that company, Blackheart Coffee, is one of the craziest guys that I know. He's like such a dreamer, just really forward about like, I have this crazy idea, what do you think? And so he found Adrian through her Twitch channel, doing streams and stuff, and he's done partnership collaborations with other people like Vicky from formerly of The Agonist, and Six Sense is her band now. These kind of metal band coffee collabs before, and he reached out to her about doing a coffee, and she was like, let's rope it in with Spires and name it after a song and do it that way. And funny enough, actually, my signature guitar that I'm playing now, Blackheart, also has a guitar company. So it's Blackheart Coffee, Blackheart Guitars. And I have a really amazing signature guitar with them too that I've been playing religiously now. All the new music videos, the album was recorded with it. So it's cool. I can go to get my two favorite things from the same company, coffee and guitars.
That's awesome. I do a little thing on my Instagram page from the channel, which I brew my coffee every morning and I recommend a song, what I'm listening to, what I like, and what's coming out. I've done some recent Seven Spires thing. I'm definitely gonna try to get this coffee.
It's actually from Brazil, I think.
Really?
I think the bean is sourced from Brazil and then roasted over here. Town's called something vaguely Lord of the Rings, like Minas something. I'll send you a photo of the bag or something like that if you find me on Instagram. It's actually a really great coffee roast. Like it's not just our name slapped on a bag of whatever. Like we tried a bunch of different roasts and picked one that we all really loved, and they're roasted fresh basically every week here in the States. So when you buy it, you're getting like the real deal.
Well, speaking of Brazil, you mentioned you had some friends here. Do you have any Portuguese knowledge?
No, I wish I did. It's such a cool language. I've only picked up Picanha and Caipirinha.
That'll get you
Oh,
far.
and Beleza.
What?
Beleza.
Oh, cool. Spoke about producing bands and mixing bands. Can you name some that you really like and you think the people should listen to?
Yeah, well, obviously the most recent Spires record is like now my crown jewel of the discography. I'm still pretty new to it, so I'm hoping to work with more active bands. But there's a band called Aftertime that from the States, from Minneapolis, that I did a record with them. They flew me out to record a live choir for that album. So there's like a full live choir in addition to symphonic metal. So that album's called Arcane Horizons, and the band's Aftertime. I also Firewing out of Brazil that I mixed an album called, I think, Resurrections for them, and a couple of singles as well. Done some stuff for like a pop punk band called Say Hello Sunday that's about to be coming out. That's really cool. And there's a lot of stuff. I'd have to like go through my folder of things because it's sort of like a work thing too, where like the project's done and then I don't have to think about it anymore. But every once in a while, I flip through and I'm like, oh yeah, that was pretty good, huh? I should put that back into the rotation.
And producing and mixing a fortress called Home, you probably heard it like over 100,000 times. Do you still feel it listening to it? Are you still put it on? You still play it?
Yeah, I do. I had to take a break from it, like after I finished everything, for sure. It was like I've heard this too many times to enjoy it. But like also with writing the songs too, it's I think my experience is probably different than the average listener. So like when it comes on, I remember like where I was helping write the song or like things that were going on the day that we were recording. So yeah, I still listen to it all the time. Actually, the times that I listen to Spires the most, like it feels weird to listen to my own stuff, but at the gym, like if I'm working out, it seems like good stuff for that for some reason.
Definitely. Well, for my last question, I always like to ask my guests here in the show, what are you listening lately? Did you get to know something new? Doesn't have to be metal at all. What would you recommend to the public?
Yeah, I guess there are two things that come to mind immediately that were like the other day discoveries that haven't really turned off. Is there's a, a collection. I'm not sure if it's a live performance or not, but a collection of Joe Hisashi's scores from Studio Ghibli. That he does the scores for those films that Miyazaki does. So it's like Japanese orchestral music, and it's called like Symphonic Celebration or Collection or something like that. So I'd recommend that if you're a fan of very chill stuff. I also discovered this band called In Vain. That's like a melodeath doomy kind of a thing, with really interesting chord progressions and really good production. So there's a song called Origin, I think, that I remember being awesome. That I was like, this is cool. I'm going to buy this album. So yeah, In Vain, the song is called Origin. Check that one out.
It's perfect. I like to open up a space for you to talk to the audience and to the public from Brazil and whoever is watching us.
Hello from the States. I love your country. I've been there for vacation at least once, and it was amazing. Lots of friends in Brazil. Some of the friendliest people on the planet, actually. And I can't wait to bring the band down and play for you guys. I hope you enjoy the new album. It's out in about a week, or I guess when the interview airs, it'll be out. Thanks for listening to us. Share us with your friends, and I hope we can come play for you very soon, and I can eat all of your food.
Picanha.
Yes, lots of picanha.
And drink the caipirinha.
Here around where I live in South Carolina. You can get picanha really cheap because no one here knows what to do with it. Like it looks like a roast. So compared to any other cut of beef, it's like really, really cheap. So I go to the supermarket and I just get a shit ton of it and throw it in the freezer.
And you learn to cook it?
Yeah. I learned, like, I spent a long time actually, like, going back and forth with Kyle, my buddy, like, is this right? Like, how do you do when you score the fat? You know, what's the best temperature? And so I spent it's like my favorite meat on the planet too. So,
well, I gotta ask, you came to Brazil. Where did you spend your vacations?
In Sao Paulo, and then his family had like a vacation home on the beach somewhere, and it wasn't that far, like a few hours drive, but I don't know exactly.
Like Guarujá or
Ubatuba? I can't remember the name. Okay. I would have to ask, but it wasn't very far from Sao Paulo.
That's cool. Thank you so much for your time.